Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. I want to once again start by acknowledging the hard work and the effort that has gone into this process and the need for us to conclude this process in time. And I'm happy we have almost come to the end of it. Mr. Chairman, I have 4 comments to make, and I will sit down. The first one, Mr. Chairman, is that the number, what you just educated us on now, the number of registered voters you published on the 21st of February and the one that was used today for the election has a difference of 1.669 million. It was 84 million on February 21. And today, from what we see as registered voters across the state, put together, it came to 82,334,107. So there's a difference of 1,669,000 missing from the voter register. 1,600,000 people are missing from the registered voters. So if you keep that number on one side and go back to the total valid votes cast, which you also explained, particularly, Mr. Chairman, I would like you to note that in Oyo State, 137,000 people are missing from the register. In Imo State, 234,000. In Abia, 139,000. And in Nasarawa, 108,000. Lagos has 256,000. These are the big states. For the total valid votes cast of 27 million and the total invalid votes of 1.2 million, we got a total vote cast of 28 million and a total accreditation of 29 million. So there's a difference of 750,000. And I hear you, it's about 2%. But we'll put that number on a second table. And then we go to the issue, Mr. Chairman, of the cancelled votes. The cancelled votes impacted 2.7 million registered voters. And if you look at the 2.7938196 registered voters that are impacted, the difference in the 1.6 million, the 750,000, and the 2.7 million people that are impacted is about 5.1 million votes. 5.1 million votes is greater than 3.9 million votes. And I want you to note that from your summation, the APC candidate is leading by 3.9 million votes. I also want you to note, Mr. Chairman, that at the fundamental root of this election, what you told us at the beginning of this process was that where there are no card reader verification, that election is null, it doesn't exist. And we have on record many states where there are votes without card readers. So, Mr. Chairman, we ask you to review the votes in Bauchi, in Borno, in Gombe, in Jigawa, and in Katsina. And we have detailed out local governments where this card reader was not used. And it is at the fundamental of this election. And there may be other states, we don't want to go into the details because we are of time, we don't want to bog you with the 36 states. I also think that it is important that when you mentioned that 35% voter turnout in this election, 35% is a fair number. But it is strange to me that some states had 52% voter turnout, 55% in Jigawa, 40% in Yobe. There was a consistent over 40% voter turnout in certain parts of the country. I don't think that it means they may be politically aware, they may be politically more conscious than the rest of the country. But again, it forces us to look again at the issue of the card reader. Because where the card reader was used, there were many issues that made it difficult for large quantity of people to vote. So I want to urge you, Mr. Chairman, that by the explanation I have given, by the numbers I have brought together, showing that there are 5.1 million votes in question here, that you do not go ahead and declare the winner of this election. That you call for a review of these areas and possibly call for a rerun in the areas where there were no use of card readers, which is why we asked you to bring out the data of what your smart card readers say. Our own tabulation tells us that there are only about 23 million votes that possibly went through the card reader. Maximum 24 million, because we told our agents to tabulate for us those where they use card readers. And our tabulation tells us about 24. With the almost 29 million votes at stake, again, another 5 million is in question that we think did not go through the card reader. So, Mr. Chairman, I would like you to give careful consideration to my thoughts. These views are made, as you said, they are preliminary. They are made because we are just gathering this data direct from our own situation room. But as we progress, depending on what you decide today, we'll be making available more detailed information about this process. But I want to say that the PDP requests you, as their agent, I'm requesting you that, Mr. Chairman, you should not go ahead with announcing a winner for this election. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further comment? If there is no other comment, I will respond. And after responding, we'll then conclude this process. I want to respond in two ways. First, the assertion that there are 5.1 million voters who could not vote and did not vote simply on account of the failure of the smart card reader. And you are right that our guidelines and regulations provide for a repeat elections where card readers fail. And we did so in a number of states. In Abia, for instance, we did so. In Bayelsa, quite a number of local governments had to repeat the elections on Sunday. We did so in several other states. But based on the figures that we have seen of cancelled elections, we have disaggregated and decomposed these figures. I realize that quite a number of those figures are from places where the card reader was deliberately circumvented. Clause 47 of our regulations and guidelines are very clear. Where the card reader is deliberately circumvented, you write a 0 and proceed with the election. So in that case, you can't consider the votes in those areas as truly cancelled votes. Yes, they are cancelled votes, but they are deserved cancelled votes. And before we finalized on the guidelines and regulations, we threw it open to Nigerians. And we received comments and inputs from citizens before finalizing on that. So the figure that you quoted, if it is from the process that took place on Saturday, if you carefully decompose these figures, look at our regulations and guidelines, and look at the provision that where the card reader is deliberately circumvented, enter 0 and proceed, you may not arrive at that figure. Certainly the Commission has not arrived at that figure. Secondly, you raised issues about places where the voter turnout was 40%, 55%, as again the national average of 35%. 35.6% is the national average. But remember, in these matters, there is no sugar cube equality in terms of participation of citizens in election across the Federation. So in some places you may have 40%, 45%, 50%, but by the time you do the national average, it gives you what we call the national. So the 35.6% is national. If you don't like sugar cube equality, I will say magic cube equality. There is no magic cube equality in this respect. There are other issues that I think, since we are both speaking on the basis of preliminary findings, we better rest this at the level of preliminary findings. The work of making our electoral system robust will not end with the 2019 general elections. In fact, from tomorrow, the Commission will start work on the 2023 general elections. So So these suggestions will be very, very useful for the future.